Hello and welcome to this conversation about accounting and analytics and master's program at LUMS that we are launching this year. Uh, Role of accounting in organizations has always been to generate insights, support effective decision making. Uh, with the rapid evolution in technologies recently, effective exploitation of data assets and developing responses to rapidly evolving situations is now a key to success. And I think this has highlighted in the recent COVID-19 pandemic as well, where agile organizations have braved a storm, and those which have not embraced technology are facing issues. So rapid advance in technology, both hardware and software, has enabled cheap and effective data accumulation and processing. So today what we are going to do is we are going to talk about how accounting and finance professionals are adapting to such challenges, and in our Pakistani context, what needs to be done to successfully exploit such opportunities offered by advances in technology. More than a decade ago, or rather about 15 years ago, LUMS introduced its undergrad program in accounting and finance. It has been the best in class ever since. The most sought after undergrad program at LUMS. It has been successful in producing many leaders and movers and shakers in the industry and practice of accounting and finance. A few years ago, we introduced another major in our undergrad program that was management science. This was in response to the evolving, again, what is the future. So the management science major has been there to train and equip our students to meet the challenges of the technologies and the opportunities that are evolving. And this major has also been a huge success. So our master's in accounting and analytics is sort of a combination of both of these: our expertise in accounting and finance, and also in management science, which looks at use of data, as well as technology and implementation of those in industry. So I am Omer Haroon. I'm a faculty at Suleiman Daud School of Business at LUMS. I'm looking after the MS program in accounting and analytics. So I'll be in conversation with this topic with Dr. Usama Yaqub, who's also a faculty at Suleiman Daud School of Business, and his expertise is in data analytics and allied issues. I am very fortunate to have Ali Kamar with me. He is a partner at EY, and he's looking after the consulting areas in primarily in accounting and finance, but then business consulting, transaction advisory, and other areas. So I let Usama and Ali briefly introduce themselves and their brief take on this program. So Usama, can you go first, please?
Thank you, Matt. So my name is Usama Yaqub. And I have been teaching in Suleiman Daud School of Business at LUMS for around 3 years now. So prior to that, I did my PhD in information systems from Rutgers, US, as a Fulbright scholar. And there my research interest is in the area of social media data analytics, machine learning, big data analytics. इन चीजों में ज्यादातर मेरी research है, and prior to that I worked, so I have 6 years of work experience in Pakistan. मैंने Telenor में काम किया in business intelligence department as assistant manager, and I also work in Teradata as a data warehousing consultant, or I'm also an MBA from LUMS as well, and my undergrad is in computer science. I am here at Sulaiman Dawood School of Business. I teach business intelligence. I teach business data management to undergrad and to MBA students. And this is a field that is generating a lot of excitement these days. Har area ke andar, be it marketing. So I've taught a course, data-driven marketing as well. Something that needs to be understood about technology is that technology in itself is agnostic. Technology khud se is no end to a mean. In technology is a means rather. So you can deploy a technology, let's say in marketing, and maybe understand your campaigns better, make your campaigns more cost effective. Similarly, you can employ technology in finance. जहाँ फिर आप financial analytics करते हो, you get a better picture of how आपके cost benefit analysis आप बेहतर कर सकते हो. So technology is being used. So one of the biggest users of big data is, surprising to a lot of people, is medical science, because there's so much imagery data. You have X-rays, you have scans, you have prescriptions, और वो सारी different type, a lot of imagery data is involved, और उसके ऊपर analysis करना है. So one of the hot areas of big data analytics is medical science. So technology in itself is agnostic. It's how you apply that technology, and that's where basically financial and accounting analytics come in, because you have a lot of accounting data within the organizations. The amount of data is increasing every day. We have we have internet of things, we have social media, we have a lot of systems. Automation बढ़ती जा रही है सारे processes के अंदर, globally भी और पाकिस्तान में भी, and that means कि data हमारा बढ़ रहा है. शायद उस speed से ना बढ़ रहा हो जहाँ बाकी दुनिया में बढ़ रहा है, पर आज हम ज्यादा data create कर रहे हैं compared to last year, and tomorrow we will create more data than we are creating today. So there is a lot of opportunity there, there's a lot of potential there, there's a lot of data there related to accounting, जिसका फिर आप analytics कर सकते हैं and get a better view of your organization.
Thank you, Osama. I'll request Ali Kamar to talk a little bit about himself and his role.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Pleasure being here on this forum with LUMS, and very heartening to see this program of accounting and analytics being rolled out by LUMS. A brief about myself. I joined the profession about 22 years back, और उस वक्त जो थी वो accounting की दुनिया काफ़ी simple थी. Financial reporting standards कुछ हुआ करते थे, और बहुत आसानी से हम लोग उसको समझ जाते थे. Accounting जो थी वो ज़्यादा manually होती थी, और जो accounting systems हैं वो उस वक्त organizations के अंदर introduce हो रहे थे. और फिर वो सारी ट्रांजिशन हम लोगों ने देखी जहाँ पे अब अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम्स से बात बहुत आगे जा चुकी है. देयर आर इंटीग्रेटेड ERP सिस्टम्स व्हिच आर इन प्लेस इन मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस. और वो जो पहले अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम्स पहले सिर्फ रिकॉर्ड कीपिंग के लिए एक न्यू ट्रेंड हुआ करता था आज से 22 साल पहले. सो आज जो है वो अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम्स के बाद ERPs के बाद, so there are further advancements which are considered as to how the data can be used to look forward instead of looking backwards and just as a transaction record. So इस सारी transition में जो चीज़ बहुत interesting थी वो ये था कि accountants का role radically change हुआ from the time when accountants were more involved in reconciliations, recording transactions, to a time when accountants is one of the skill set which is at the highest risk of being phased out because of the advancement in technology. लेकिन accountant का role जो है वो मेरे लिहाज से it's not being phased out, it's actually being transformed into a new role. और वो जो नया role है वो looking backwards की बजाय वो बहुत ज़्यादा productive है, it is actually looking forwards. And और probably शायद जो आपके कोर्स में इस सारे प्रोग्राम में, I think one of the elements which I really found interesting is that this is the need of the hour कि accountants अपने आप को इस चीज़ के ऊपर ट्रेन करना शुरू करें on how to look forward. जिस तरह अभी डॉक्टर उसामा ने बताया कि there is a huge bulge of data which is being now captured by organizations. तो इस data को utilize कैसे कर सकते हैं accounting community, or as a center or sitting at the center of the organization, how this can be leveraged. So as sitting in a firm, accounting firm, we are rightly at the center of this whole problem as well as the solution of it. We have really transformed ourselves internally because the accounting field was like shaping up differently. So हमारी auditing practices उसके लिहाज से revamp होनी थी, हमारी accounting consulting उसके लिहाज से revamp होनी थी, जो हमारे अपने skill sets हैं of consulting organizations on how to like structure themselves for the future, that actually was transformed a lot, and I was part of all of that. So been in very interesting times and looking forward to it going forward as well.
Great, thank you, Ali. So we'll have a heart-to-heart conversation with the both of our panelists. Usama, आपसे सवाल है, अली ने बात की बैकवर्ड लुकिंग, फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग, अकाउंटिंग इंफॉर्मेशन, लेकिन हम ये बातें एनालिटिक्स के बारे में इन जनरल भी करते हैं, बैकवर्ड लुकिंग एनालिटिक्स, फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग एनालिटिक्स, और फिर कुछ टर्म्स हैं जो बहुत ज़्यादा यूज़ हो रही हैं लेकिन उसका आम फहम में मतलब क्या है वो लोगों को इतना अंदाज़ा नहीं है. आर्टिकल्स लिखे जाते हैं और बातें होती हैं, बट कुड यू जस्ट in simple terms explain कि एनालिटिक्स है क्या, बैकवर्ड लुकिंग एनालिटिक्स क्या होता है, फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग एनालिटिक्स क्या होता है, and a term that is very in these days, a disruption, वो क्या है बला?
So you rightly mentioned backward and forward looking analytics, और उसमें जो sort of terms that we use in class is, एक तो आपके descriptive analytics है, where you are looking at what has happened. This is sort of backward looking, and ये sort of जब evolution भी हुआ analytics का, as organizations they started implementing operation system और उनका data उन्होंने collect करना शुरू किया, they were then able to see what has been happening in the organization. So that's your sort of backward looking descriptive analytics. And then you have forward looking analytics, जहाँ पे as our technology is evolving and we are also gathering more and more data, so now we are able to create models जहाँ पे फिर हम predictive analytics भी कर सकते हैं. We can look into the future. So I mean, of course, at the end of the day, nobody can predict the future 100%, and you always have black swan events, like let's say ये जो coronavirus का pandemic है आया और वो सारे models were sort of thrown into a disarray. But as you have more and more data and you have more and more, आपने उसके साथ time spend किया और जैसे भी technology increase कर रही है, we are able to create better models that can give us an insight into the future. At least हम कुछ predictive analytics कर सकते हैं कि क्या फ्यूचर में हमारा होगा, कस्टमर अपटेक क्या होगी किसी प्रोडक्ट की, so on and so forth. So these are sort of forward looking, and organizations would usually have to, ये step wise एक process है. Firstly you'll have to do descriptive analytics का आपका capability build करनी पड़ेगी, and then you'll move forward to predictive analytics, जहाँ पे फिर आप forward looking आप predict कर सकते हो customer behavior, whether this customer is going to churn or not, whether this customer is moving to a competitor, and so on and so forth. As far as disruptions are concerned, so there are a lot of technologies that are out there जो कि disrupt कर रही हैं. I think accounting and finance is one area where we will see a lot of disruptions, a lot of technologies. तो I think Ali ने एक बड़ी interesting बात की थी कि accountants का जो role है वो change हो रहा है. Accountants were primarily logging transactions and reconciling. तो वो काम अब I think we are all aware कि बड़े आराम से automate किया जा सकता है. We have AI की capability that can do this on its own without any human intervention. So these are the sort of processes and tasks which are automating because of artificial intelligence के अंदर जो developments हो रही हैं. Similarly, फिर technologies आ गई हैं blockchain type जो immutable अब हैं, sort of databases which are immutable, जहाँ पे reconciliation बहुत आसान, because you cannot change it. If you change one element of the blockchain in the past, जो ledger है, you cannot go back and change any entry in the ledger in past. सारी फिर खराब हो जाएगा. So you have to make sure. तो reconciliation आसान हो गई है blockchain की वजह से. Again, auditing account ये वाला काम reconcile करना statements को, this has become fairly straightforward. So there's blockchain, there is artificial intelligence. Then there's also the fact कि data बहुत ज़्यादा हमारे पास create हो रहा है, and like I said, more and more sophisticated models are now being created. So you have machine learning के algorithms that are able to predict, predictive analytics आप कर सकते हैं. क्लासिफाई कर सकते हैं, फ्रॉड डिटेक्शन के बहुत सारे एल्गोरिदम, बहुत ज्यादा रिसर्च हो रही है मशीन लर्निंग के एल्गोरिदम्स दैट कैन डिटेक्ट फ्रॉड फ्रॉम योर डेटा। सिमिलरली बिग डेटा की एक और जो क्वालिटी है वो ये है कि यू हैव लाइव sort of stream of data की जो आपके पास है, you don't even have time to clean that data and then put it into a system. It's a stream sort of data that's coming into you, और आप उस डेटा को evaluate कर रहे हो real time, so you can do some real time financial analytics. और at least fraud detection के अंदर this has a lot of potential because आपको there and then, rather than looking back कि let's say एक महीने पहले fraud हुआ था या 2 हफ्ते पहले हुआ था, now you can sort of real time detect if there's some anomalous activity that's taking place. So there's a lot of disruptive technologies that are out there. A lot of them are being applied in the area of finance and accounting, and उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा a lot of things have been implemented, and there's a lot of future potential for implementation.
Yeah, Ali, आपने कहा forward-looking technologies, better application, better tools are available now to quickly do whatever you want to do. क्या क्योंकि टिपिकली अकाउंटेंट्स कंजर्वेटिव समझे जाते हैं, नॉट रियली विलिंग टू चेंज क्विकली, आपके ख्याल में एटीट्यूड भी चेंज हो रहा है इन द प्रोफेशन, विलिंग टू एक्सेप्ट चेंज, विलिंग टू बी मोर एडवेंचरस?
जी बिल्कुल ऐसा ही है। सो एक तो ये है कि इस चीज़ की रियलाइजेशन के टेक्नोलॉजी का इम्पैक्ट हमारी प्रोफेशन के ऊपर और हमारी नॉर्मल लाइफ के ऊपर बहुत सिग्निफिकेंट है। आई थिंक दिस इज समथिंग विच इज अ कॉमन नॉलेज, और इसकी वजह से बहुत से लोग अपने आप को बहुत सी इसमें से अपॉर्चुनिटीज भी क्रिएट करते हैं, और बहुत से लोग इसमें थ्रेटेंड भी फील करते हैं, जिसकी वजह से देयर इज अ पुश टुवर्ड्स एक्वायरिंग न्यू स्किल सेट्स। मैं एक रिसर्च रिपोर्ट देख रहा था जो कि आईफैक ने पब्लिश की थी, और उसमें उन्होंने कहा था कि दैट वाज कंसर्निंग द न्यू जनरेशन इन द अकाउंटिंग प्रोफेशन, एंड दे सेड दैट 98% ऑफ द पीपल consider that new skills are imperative to be acquired by accountants. So overwhelmingly लोगों का ये एक consensus है कि as accountants हमें नए skill sets की ज़रूरत है, particularly ये जो potential जो data analytics provide करता है। So इसके अंदर just एक दो जो चीज़ें जो relevant हैं वो ये है कि जो फाइनेंस या अकाउंटिंग फंक्शन है किसी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में, वो एक तरह से कनेक्टिंग फाइबर होता है बिटवीन द डिफरेंट अदर फंक्शंस ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। सो हमारे जो हमारे लोग फाइनेंस अकाउंट्स में होते हैं, सो दे हैव अ मच बेटर विजिबिलिटी ऑफ व्हाट इज हैपनिंग अराउंड इन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, और अगर वो इस पोटेंशियल को हार्नेस कर सकें, जो नया जो डेटा कैप्चर हो रहा है थ्रू ERPs, थ्रू IoTs, थ्रू रोबोटिक्स प्रोसेस ऑटोमेशन, ये जो टेक्नोलॉजीज नई अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्रिएट कर रही हैं, उससे वो अपने टाइम को ट्रांजैक्शन प्रोसेसिंग से बहुत से रिड्यूस करके वैल्यू एडेड फंक्शंस में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं। एंड दिस इज व्हाट इज हैपनिंग। A lot of organizations are now asking from their finance teams कि अच्छा हम लोगों ने ERPs लगाए हैं, सो इसका हमें नेट रिजल्ट बेनिफिट क्या हुआ है, और वो जो बेनिफिट है इट इज नॉट नेसेसरली इन द टर्म्स ऑफ कि आप लोगों का हेड काउंट रिड्यूस करें, बट वो बेनिफिट इस शक्ल में बहुत जबरदस्त है क्योंकि आप उस डेटा को यूज करके यू कैन क्रिएट अ लॉट मोर विजिबिलिटी इनटू द फ्यूचर एंड अ लॉट बेटर एनालिसिस ऑफ व्हाट हैज एक्चुअली हैपेंड इन द पास्ट, और इस चीज को एनालाइज करने के लिए, और व्हाट हैज हैपेंड इन द पास्ट एंड व्हाट इज गोइंग टू बी टू हैपन इन द फ्यूचर, जो एनालिटिक्स कैपेबिलिटी है दैट बिकम्स लाइक वन ऑफ द सेंटरफोल्ड कैपेबिलिटीज। द अदर बीइंग के द अकाउंटेंट्स आल्सो नीड टू नो कि ये जो नई टेक्नोलॉजीज आ रही हैं इनके यूज केसेस क्या हैं। जिस तरह डॉक्टर उसामा ने ब्लॉकचेन की बात की, या IoT का जो ताल्लुक है, या रोबोटिक्स हैं, या आर्टिफिशियल AI बेस्ड टूल्स हैं, सो इनके यूज केसेस क्या हैं, और हम लोग जब अपने डे टू डे वर्किंग्स में हाउ कैन वी डिप्लॉय दीज यूज केसेस टू ईज अवर लाइफ एंड टू एक्चुअली शिफ्ट अवर सेल्स फ्रॉम transaction processors to actually value adders in the organization. So अगर traditionally देखें तो there's a research that about like a 2/3 of the time of the accounting and finance profession was being spent on either transaction processing or reporting, so these were the two processes, the two functions which were like consuming about like 2/3 of the time of accountants and reporting function as a whole. Now this 2/3 time is like going down to about like 1/3 of it, and the remaining time, it's not that it is headcount reduction, it is actually the time which is going into a more value-added function of adding value through the data which is being collected and like looking forward. और उसके लिए हमें नए skill sets बहुत so it's like a lot of interest amongst professionals to acquire these new skill sets, and we are also like seeing a lot of initiatives which organizations are taking to impart those skill sets to their people. So across the board.
उसामा अली, दोनों से सवाल है. उसामा से थोड़ा जेनेरिक सवाल है कि बातें तो हो रही हैं ब्लॉकचेन, बिग डेटा एंड सो फोर्थ. इस वक्त पाकिस्तान में व्हाट इज द स्टेट ऑफ एडॉप्शन ऑफ दीज टेक्नोलॉजीज? लैंडस्केप कैसा है इस वक्त कंपेयर टू लेट्स से कंट्रीज इन द रीजन? और अली से थोड़ा स्पेसिफिक होगा कि use and adoption of these technologies in Pakistani accounting and finance profession and regulation. So Osama in a generic sense, and then Ali in a more specific to accounting and finance.
I think I mean, what we can see is, I think this is sort of sector dependent in my view. There are some sectors in Pakistan jahan pe we are at sort of the cutting edge. Telecom sector is one such example, and that's why you see a lot of people working in BI or data analytics के department में जो काम करते हैं पाकिस्तान के telecom sector में, a lot of them then move abroad as well. You see them because the skills that they are working with and the kind of systems that they are deploying there's a lot of demand for the kind of work that they were doing abroad as well. और बहुत सारे systems में I've myself worked in a telco. The systems that are in place are sort of as innovative and as latest as anywhere, any other place in the region or in the world for that matter. Similarly, I think our financial sector may be because of the nature of finance and because so much money is involved, you have to make sure that har cheez aapke systems and processes up to date and they are the latest. You don't have a lot of room for error. So we have sectors in Pakistan jahan pe we have some of the latest systems. We have workforce jo trained hai, which is working with the latest technologies or jo usko use kar rahe hain. So in terms of how much how we are, I think it depends on sectors. Some sectors hum shayad at global level pe hain, shayad kuch sectors mein hum piche ho. But as I said earlier as well, this is something which is only going to grow with time. The momentum is there. So अगर कुछ sectors अभी नहीं भी उस level पे पहुंचे, तो with time we will see retail है, transportation है. There's so many areas out there जहाँ पे आप अपने operations को efficient बना सकते हैं using technology and by gathering all this data. So if let's say so if you're automating or automation अपने आप process की जितनी बढ़ाते रहेंगे, उतना आपका डेटा इंक्रीज करना ग्रो करना शुरू हो जाएगा और उतना फिर बेनिफिशियल हो जाएगा आपके लिए उस डेटा को एनालाइज करना. एंड ऑलरेडी देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ डेटा दैट्स अवेलेबल ऑनलाइन, इंटरनेट बेस्ड. देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ SEC और आपके जो ये सिक्योरिटीज एंड एक्सचेंज कमीशन का, देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर कंपनीज दैट हैव टू शेयर देयर डेटा quarterly or annually, उनके reports, and this is where sort of big data comes in, where you can gather then all of this और इसकी बेस के ऊपर फिर आप बेंचमार्किंग कर सकते हैं अपनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की. आप देख सकते हैं कि हाउ यू आर डूइंग vis-a-vis other organizations in the same sector. So I think even if we are lagging in some areas, there's only with time it will only improve and grow.
Yes, and Ali, because you are part of a global accounting network, आपको exposure होगा दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है और हमारे क्या स्टेट है. So can you talk about the accounting profession and its state and willingness to adapt?
Well, I agree कि कुछ sectors में जो adoption है of accounting tools वो relatively ज़्यादा advanced है, कुछ sectors में अभी relatively initial stages के ऊपर है, लेकिन एक चीज़ जो consistent हमें नजर आती है वो ये आती है कि जो momentum है that is towards becoming more technology oriented as organizations. और इस वक्त हम लोगों को जो सबसे ज़्यादा जो रिक्वेस्ट और जो क्लाइंट्स की तरफ से जो फीडबैक आता है वो यही आता है कि हम अपने आप को डिजिटली ट्रांसफॉर्म कैसे कर सकते हैं, और इसके ऊपर काफ़ी एक्सटेंसिव प्रोग्राम्स हैं जो बहुत सी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं विच आर लोकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस एंड विच आर नॉट डायरेक्टली टेक्नोलॉजी रिलेटेड, but they have adopted major programs regarding digital transformation और अपने आप को इन टूल्स से अडेप्ट कैसे कर सकते हैं. और उस पर मेरा जो हम लोग देखते हैं वो ये देखते हैं कि जो फाइनेंस या अकाउंटिंग प्रोफेशनल्स का रोल है या जो CFO का रोल है, इट इज़ क्रिटिकल when it comes to conceptualizing such initiatives or also when it comes to undertaking these initiatives in the organizations. So effectively this also suggests कि एक तो इसके potential के ऊपर general awareness लोगों में है. COVID has actually expedited that awareness और उसको बहुत fast track किया है because of the benefits that clearly जो organizations COVID से पहले technology enabled थी, they were able to operate much better than those who were not technology enabled और या जहाँ पे culture जो था वो technology adoption का नहीं था. So COVID ने इस में it has played a major role, or I think the momentum is going in the right direction in the organizations. But so far, I would say that there is a lot of ground to cover. Particularly, for example, अगर हम अपने sectors में देखें तो जो financial sectors हैं, they are undertaking lots of initiatives in majority of the financial institutions in the country. जो export oriented sectors हैं, textile और बाकी, because they are competing against organizations from China, India and other countries who are much more technology enabled than the organizations in Pakistan. So they are also like thinking a lot about and undertaking lots of initiatives about the digital transformation and और अपने processes को technology enable करने की, और ना सिर्फ technology enable करने की बल्कि वो जो information collect हो रही है उसको properly utilize करने की. So there is number one, there is the factors which are like driving it is एक तो COVID has been a major factor. Cost of technology is actually going down. आज जो है वो ये robotics और Internet of Things और ये इन चीज़ों को deploy करने की cost या payback is like cost is much lesser, payback is much better. और इसी तरह जो skill set acquisition है, that has also become a lot easier because of the digital learning platforms which are available. So it's easier to acquire knowledge, it's easier to access skill set, it's easier to deploy technology. और इसकी तरफ I think the trend is very healthy in my view.
अली, आपने अपनी जवानी के दिनों की तो बता दी थी दास्तान के जब आप अकाउंटेंट बने काफ़ी आसान काम था, complications कम थी and everything, but because these things have evolved very quickly in the last few years, for you as a consulting and advisory professional, आपकी अपनी जिंदगी, how has your typical day changed over the last 3, 4, 5 years? The way you work, the way things work around you.
So over the last 5, 7 years, हमारी organization में there has been a lot of focus on shifting the skill set. Because it was like clearly visible that technology is the way to go forward for the services industry or in the consulting business, and technology enablement is not an option, it is the only option rather. So हमारी organization में there has been a lot of shift on number one, making our own operations technology enabled, सो हम लोग जो टूल्स यूज करते हैं उनको टेक्नोलॉजी इनेबल किया जाए, और दूसरा अपस्किलिंग एंड रीस्किलिंग द पीपल with new technology and new tools. There is a lot of focus on the digital learning, acquiring new skill sets on all these new areas. For example, data visualization, data analysis, design thinking, innovation management. So इन चीजों के ऊपर हमारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में बहुत they have like introduced structured learning courses which are internationally renowned for our people to do, ताकि ये सारा skill set जो है वो transition हो towards where the world is moving. और इसमें एक बहुत जो learning है for us to take forward, वो ये है कि ये जो सारी transition है, it's not just a transition which the organization has to take, it's also a transition which people in the organization have to do for themselves and also enable for their organizations. So इसमें जो हम लोग अक्सर जगहों पे देखते हैं वो ये है कि बहुत ज़्यादा फोकस टूल्स के ऊपर होता है, on acquiring the tools, deploying the tools, और बहुत कम फोकस होता है उन लोगों के ऊपर जिन्होंने उस टूल को यूज करना है. So जो हम लोगों ने इसके अंदर फोकस किया, and that has like consumed most of our time, is how the people can be enabled to use those tools which are now in reach of the workforce. And only then, when the people transition and when the culture changes to actually become technology conducive and also like learning conducive, that is when the tools become really useful, because the adoption pattern changes and adoption increases. So मेरे ख्याल में जो हमारी लाइफ में चेंज आया वो ये आया कि हमें अपने स्किल सेट को ट्रांजिशन करना पड़ा. ओवर द लास्ट 4-5 years, most of the learning courses that I have attended are on the technology side, and also on these soft skills development, about like design thinking, innovation, about like emotional intelligence. A lot of these things are not like technical, but they are like from the typical accounting skill set perspective, but they are like really useful in how the tools and how the people can be like how the transition can happen with the people. So एक तो अपनी skill set के ऊपर a lot of time was spent. Then a lot of time was spent on creating and enabling the people to actually learn these new tools. So I think that transition has been very helpful to date. It's something which is going to continue. एक चीज जो बहुत clear है वो ये है कि at the rate at which these changes are happening, I think once in every 2 years, मैं ये समझता हूँ कि जो most of the professionals, it is imperative to acquire new skill sets. Once every 2 years, there has to be a new skill set which a professional has to acquire, or and every professional has to select the areas that he or she needs to work on, depending on their core capabilities and what they want to achieve in their careers. And that is what we are telling our people as well, that learning is not just one time you do a degree and then that's the end of it. It is something that we have to continuously reassess and readjust ourselves. So एक और जो aspect which is which I would mention world over, वो ये है कि जो traditionally जो accounting knowledge है वो accountants से ही relate किया जाता रहा है over the past. लेकिन going forward जो probably शायद इस चीज को भी देखने की जरूरत है, जो accounting knowledge है, because it imparts a lot of commercial sense into the people in the organization. So accounting and analytics is not a knowledge which is particular to the accountants in the organization. It is required for most of the people working in the organization, चाहे वो production में काम कर रहे हो या वो marketing में काम कर रहे हो या sales में काम कर रहे हो या supply chain में काम कर रहे हो, because ultimately जो accounting and analytics है, it imparts the commercial sense which is useful for every decision that a professional, particularly once they reach the executive stage, they take. And that is the reason why I see a lot of people now moving towards acquiring different skill sets across their career, and they are not resorting to a single qualification that they take once in their life and then keep on with it.
Right. So we have to continuously retool and upskill ourselves. A leaky organization to career. And Osama, you talked about the disruptive technologies and the technologies that are already here and the technologies that are coming. So, आपके ख्याल में what kind of skills or attitude is needed to effectively use these technologies, to be an effective manager of these technologies, and to be able to exploit them fully?
So I think what Ali said is absolutely spot on. Okay, now we are at a level where you have to, engage in this continuous learning. So gone are the days where you'd go to school, aap complete kiya, aapne degree li, and then you move to industry and then you start working. Now you have to continuously upgrade your skills, because technologies are evolving very quickly. Technologies बहुत तेजी से change हो रही है, और अपने आप को अपडेट रखने के लिए बहुत जरूरी है कि आप continuously, so Ali mentioned 2 years, let's say once in 2 years आप refresh करें, नए tools लें, नई technology सीखें. So this is something that I also mentioned to my class as well, कि अगर अभी आप टेक्नोलॉजीज देखें जिनके बारे में हम बात कर रहे होते हैं, which are very hot, these technologies were not around 5 to 10 years ago. वो इतनी शायद big नहीं थी, और when I was doing my undergrad तो कुछ और था. And 15 years down the road, there's a very small probability कि यही technology dominate कर रही होगी, कोई नई चीज आ जाएगी. So you have to make sure that you're continuously updating yourself and keeping up to date. Secondly, I think एक important चीज तो थोड़ा सा data science, data analytics के साथ relate करती है, वो ये भी relate करती है कि this is a multidisciplinary area. So it's and that's why it's so hard to define it, and that's why it's also so hard to find good data scientists, because debate hai कि who is a good data scientist, statistician who knows computer programming or a computer programmer who knows statistics. And then, I mean, these are just two areas. So you have statistics and technology, which are two, technology ke saath comfort, plus statistics ka knowledge, data analytics, machine learning is also sort of statistics, but a bit more complex. And then you also need domain knowledge, domain expertise. आप किस domain के data को analyze कर रहे हो? Is it financial data? Is it marketing data? Is it HR related data? So this multidisciplinary nature then also adds another complexity to the skills that you need. It's not just आप एक टेक्नोलॉजी समझ ली, उसके साथ आपको you also need to understand statistics, you also need to understand the domain के अंदर जो के different elements हैं उनको भी आपको समझना पड़ता है. So this is something, और ये अली ने बात भी की थी कि a lot of the organizations are tool focused. This is very true, I think, in Pakistan, कि जब हम टेक्नोलॉजी की बात भी करते हैं तो the first thing they say is आप फलाना सिस्टम डिप्लॉय कर लें, या फलानी वो टेक्नोलॉजी ले आए, and you can just purchase license and install that. But then it's people that you need, जो के and this it's an entire mindset that's required. Not just कि वो उसको ऑपरेट कर सकता हो, बल्कि वो समझता हो उसकी इम्पोर्टेंस को, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अलाइंड हो प्रॉपरली उस गोल की तरफ, जहाँ पे वो उसके टेक्नोलॉजी का जो उनका फीडबैक है उसको वो वैल्यू भी करें. they take that, जो भी उनका सिस्टम उनको फिर आउटपुट देता है, they are able to then take it as well and not just discard it completely. So there's multidisciplinary nature, the fact that technologies बहुत complex हो चुके हैं, बहुत तेजी से evolve कर रही हैं. So this requires continuous learning and a mindset where you are willing to learn new tools and technologies and not be in your comfort zone all the time, जहाँ पे आपने बस जो सीखा है आप करते रहो.
So statistics, computer science, domain knowledge, and a mindset to continuously upskill yourself. लेकिन थोड़ा सा मासूमाना सवाल है, are these enough to rise to a leadership position in organizations?
ये तो अब वो चीज है कि I mean, so there's a lot that is required, and there are a lot of factors that are at play. And this is something you could debate bhi hai. I've been to a lot of पैनल्स एंड फोरम्स जहाँ पे इंडस्ट्री की बात हो रही होती है कि इंडस्ट्री का स्किल सेट क्या रिक्वायर्ड है और हम प्रोड्यूस क्या कर रहे हैं, what are the two skills that we are, let's say, imparting skills in our business school, let's say at LUMS. तो अब हम we cannot in university education cannot guarantee 100% success. और secondly ये I mean I think उसमें भी बात हुई थी कि आपकी on job training is always required. where a person goes into an organization, skill sets तो अपनी लाता है सीख के, but on job training भी फिर उसकी होती है, वो organization में learn करता है, and how good fit is he for the or she is for the organization also propels that person towards hierarchy के अंदर how high they rise. जो academia एक काम कर सकती है वो ये कर सकती है make sure कि जो requirement है इंडस्ट्री की और जो हम skill sets impart कर रहे हैं उनके दरमियान minimum gap हो. The gap is not too wide कि एक हमारा जो स्किल्स तो हम सिखाएं और जब इंडस्ट्री में जाए वो टोटली लॉस्ट हो. तो I mean there is a lot of persistence, a lot of other qualities are required. These are just some of them, and that's why it's a challenge, that's why it's so hard to rise to the top.
Yeah, so taking a cue from Osama's point here, Ali, traditionally Pakistan में accounting and finance education BCom MCom होता था, अभी होता है. Then there are professional accountancy bodies, ICAP, ACCA, ICMA, and so forth. Academically, very rare ke BSc or BA in accounting or MSc, MA in accounting. That hasn't been a focus in Pakistan kabhi bhi. लेकिन for whatever reason, but जो इस वक्त इदारे अकाउंटिंग और फाइनेंस एजुकेशन दे रहे हैं, इंक्लूडिंग प्रोफेशनल एंड एकेडमिक इंस्टीट्यूशंस, what advice would you give to them so that the future professionals are equipped with the tools and skill set to deal with what's coming?
देखें, जो हमारा जो एकेडमिक सिस्टम है और जो मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द डिग्रीज हैं, दे आर मोर फोकस्ड ऑन बिल्डिंग टेक्निकल नॉलेज ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स इन डिफरेंट डिसिप्लिन्स, चाहे वो अकाउंटिंग से रिलेटेड हो या किसी और सब्जेक्ट से रिलेटेड हो. जबकि जब हम लोग ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस में आते हैं या जब हम लोग अपने काम में आते हैं, तो वी टॉक अ लॉट अबाउट कॉम्पिटेंसीज. So competencies जो हैं, they are technical, but they are also non-technical. A lot of them are non-technical. So for example, जो आपका जो leadership है, team work है, for example आपकी critical thinking है, for example आपका जो strategic perspective है. So a lot of things are non-technical, which are not part of any particular syllabus, but they are integral to success of an individual at work, whether चाहे वो job करे या अपना business करे या जो भी काम करे, but उसमें वो integral component है उसकी success का. So I think one of the elements which the academics have to somehow build into the educational programs is a focus on building the competencies overall from the other perspectives, in addition to the technical skill set. और उसके लिए शायद बहुत ज़रूरी ये है कि जो एकेडेमिया के और इंडस्ट्री के लिंकेजेस हैं, जो इंटर्नशिप प्रोग्राम्स हैं, जो डिफरेंट फ्लेवर्स हैं, जो फॉर्मल लर्निंग और प्रैक्टिकल लर्निंग आपको सिखाती है, आई थिंक उसका जो आपस में कोरिलेशन है, दैट बिकम्स वेरी यूजफुल. और यही चीज़ हम लोग टाइम एंड अगेन सीखते भी हैं अपने प्रोफेशन में भी, कि there is no alternate to a structured technical learning, and there is no alternate to a structured practical learning as well. और ये जो practical learning और technical learning है, ये दोनों चीजें आपस में इंटीग्रेट करती हैं, तो एक अच्छे प्रोफेशनल का स्किल सेट डेवलप होता है. So I think both these things are integrated. They should go hand in hand, or organizations or academic institutions they need to somehow come together to integrate the two to make better professionals. जो के so एक तो ये aspect है. The second aspect which I just wanted to mention, picking from what Dr. Usama mentioned, I think जो data scientist और data engineers का या जो इसमें एक point of view आता है, I think there are what I see is that there are 4 roles which are important. One is definitely a data engineer जो कि data cleansing, data collection, data grading को properly enable कर सकें. Then there is a very important role of data controllers. किसको किस चीज की access होनी चाहिए है internally, externally. बहुत से data के jurisdictional issues हैं, so a lot of these things are taken care by the data controllers. और उसमें जो international trends हैं वो ये है कि जो accounting finance professionals हैं, they are undertaking a lot of roles as data controllers in the organization. The second, so after data controllership, there is, I think, data science, which is what Dr. Osama mentioned. It's a very integral role to actually find to model, to create insight, develop insights out of it, to measure, to conduct measurements or different things. But then there is another very important element, which is again where accountants and finance professionals becomes very critical, and that is to act as strategic advisors, because once there are insights, they have to be correlated to the business to actually define what to do or what has been done. And we have to develop a business insight out of that analysis which is performed by data scientists. So I think that is again where accounting and finance professionals can be very pertinent and very relevant, provided they have the understanding of how those insights can be used to become a strategic advisor. और उसमें मेरे ख्याल में बहुत opportunity exist करती है accounting और finance professionals के लिए. This is one of the ways to actually differentiate yourself. I would not, as you mentioned earlier, कि क्या ये वो तरीका है जिससे कोई अपने career में succeed हो कर सकता है. So ये maybe it's not an absolute way to succeed, but it can be a good differentiator for people who can use data better and can create strategic insights out of that data. So just wanted to add this comment to what Dr. Usama rightly pointed out at that time.
Right. Dr. Usama ने कुछ काम किया हुआ है in terms of application and use of social media in public life, in politics, and so forth. He's very much interested. But public sector accounting और public sector finance के अंदर भी application है analytics and these tools, या वो उसी रविश पे चलते रहेंगे जो काफी सालों से कायम हैं जिस पे?
पब्लिक सेक्टर में प्रॉब्ली शायद बहुत ज़्यादा यूज केसेस हैं एनालिटिक्स के, और जो डेटा यूटिलाइजेशन है, और मेरे ख्याल में जितना बड़ा डेटा सेट शायद पब्लिक सेक्टर के पास है इन डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, उतना रिच डेटा सोर्स शायद प्राइवेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के पास नहीं होगा. Just consider the data which is available with for example, the Safe Cities Authority, which has 10,000 cameras across a city, and they are collecting different feeds. So it's like a huge data set. और अगर उसको use किया जा सके तो it can generate a lot of very useful insights for the society, for overall use, even for the commercial for the commercial use as well. It has huge value. Similarly, for example, जो procurement data gather करती हैं different organizations, I think if that data can be consolidated at any place and that data can be used, so it can create a lot of efficiencies for the public sector and create a lot of insights for the use of the society as well, be it healthcare or education or other areas. So I think public sector में मेरे ख्याल में awareness भी है अब, although वहाँ पे उनके challenges, they have different challenges, but there is a lot of talk, there is a lot of discussion, there is a lot of thought process which is going on in different organizations at different levels कि वो इस टेक्नोलॉजी के पोटेंशियल को हार्नेस कैसे कर सकते हैं, और उसमें सिर्फ डेटा नहीं है बल्कि उसमें it's a broader like question of how they can harness the potential which the technology offers.
Very happy to know. But does this include early agencies and institutions like FBR, SCCP, State Bank? Is there a talk there in terms of adopting and embracing these technologies?
Well, I see a lot of programs on that. Programs in the which जो के in different areas में technology के ऊपर हैं, SCCP, FBR, SPP में, और उनको definitely actually the problem, the scale of the problem in public sector is normally much bigger than the private sector, और उसको sort out करने के लिए भी उतना ही ज़्यादा time चाहिए होता है और उतनी ज़्यादा effort चाहिए होती है to actually sort it out. The stakeholders are much more than in the private sector. So जो challenges हैं, they are of very different level in the public sector. But I know with lots of these organizations that you have mentioned that there is a lot of discussion and a lot of efforts which are going on regarding digital transformations, adopting different tools. बहुत ज़्यादा बात I'm sure कि आप टीवी में और अखबारात में और मुख्तलिफ जगहों पे आती है जहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट जो है वो बिजनेस पोर्टल बनाने के लिए काफ़ी एफर्ट्स कर रही है. So again, जब ये portals या ये जो tech tools setup होते हैं, so they collect a lot of data, and that data becomes very useful for those organizations and also for like providing service to the citizen and to the businesses. So I think they are thinking on the on those lines, but as we all know, there is a lot of additional thought process which needs to actually go into these different tools as to how these should be planned. किसी बड़े vision से इनको connect होना चाहिए. वो vision क्या है? That has to be put in place. और फिर ये जो individual interventions हैं, अगर ये उस बड़े vision से connect होंगी तो it will produce more sustainable and a bigger impact rather than individual bits and pieces which are being done at different organizations in their own silos. So I think it's important कि government एक bigger level के ऊपर एक roadmap, एक strategy develop करे और फिर उसको roll out करे in different organizations and different layers of the government.
Very, very happy to know that Ali is positive about public sector embracing these technologies and in accounting and finance, public accounting and public finance areas as well. And definitely they would be needing people with skills to implement such ambitious plans. Let's talk to Sama. आप involved रहे हैं in teaching undergrad courses, MBA, executive development courses, and in our master's programs as well. Other than this initiative of MS in accounting and analytics, so in terms of जो आप बात कर रहे थे technologies, blockchain and data analytics and descriptive and blah blah blah, other than this MS, LUMS में क्या कुछ होता है, अब तक हम क्या करते रहे हैं in terms of providing skills to our students in these areas?
So I think there's now a global shift in business schools around the world, जो कि अब now are becoming more technology focused, and they are now aligning themselves closely with a lot of technologies, and they're developing expertise in that area. So a lot of the universities and a lot of graduate, undergraduate programs around the world in business schools are still sort of figuring out, okay, let's say what should be the components of a data science program, what should be the components of a management science program, जो कि हमारा इधर LUMS में undergraduate. So if we talk about LUMS, I am also coordinator of the management science program at the undergrad level. So we do now have a focus of including courses which teach students, some of the latest technologies like Python, R, Microsoft Azure, cloud computing, SQL, databases, because these are, the things, information systems are now being deployed in Pakistan, or, और बहुत सारे organizations के अंदर deploy भी हो रहे हैं, so these are necessary, skills that they need. Secondly, पाकिस्तान में एक और चीज जो आजकल बहुत take off करी है वो है e-commerce, and e-commerce is a lot about, web based. कोरोना के pandemic की वजह से people are ordering online, और a lot of businesses are moving towards on internet और e-commerce के अंदर वो move कर रहे हैं. So there are a lot of these information systems related technologies, जिसमें आप databases की बात करते हैं, आप web उसकी बात करते हैं, जो कि कोई बहुत cutting edge नहीं है. They have been around for a while, but they so उसके ऊपर हम focus कर रहे हैं. फिर हम in LUMS also setting up a blockchain का center, research center, जिसमें we are also going to, so this is sort of more cutting edge, more latest technology that's out there. People are still figuring out how it can be used, what's the possible potential for that. So uska bhi ek center set up ho raha hai LUMS mein at the School of Science and Engineering or business school ke collaboration mein. So we also have a very excellent engineering school, तो उनके साथ भी हम फिर collaborate कर सकते हैं, and we can work into research technology and how they can be applied in businesses, and real world. So, I mean, these are some of the initiatives that we've taken at LUMS. These are some of the technologies that we are, adopting. But this is something you can globally, people are figuring this out, because, like I said, technology is evolving very quickly. People are still figuring it out. जब आप figure out करते हो, तो what you find is that technology is now moved ahead a bit as well. So it's sort of
at graduate level. क्या courses introduce हुए हैं, क्या किस किस्म की skills देते हैं MBA, MS, other MS programs उसमें, in terms of.
So we have like business intelligence in our MBA, where we teach them primarily the descriptive analytics ka part. And this is something which also I think relates with Pakistan, because हम I think अब उस stage पे आए हैं where people have started realizing the benefits of business, data analytics for business. So and जिस तरह हमने पहले भी बात की थी कि ये sort of step wise होता है. You do descriptive analytics and then you move to predictive and advanced analytics. तो अब I think हमारी organizations ने पाकिस्तान में automation शुरू की है systems की. They've started deploying these systems और उन्होंने data generate करना शुरू की है, and now they've realized कि वो data generate कर रहे हैं. Let's do something interesting with this data. So we are at a stage now where business intelligence, descriptive analytics, जो कि आपने बात की थी, backward looking analysis, अब हम adopt करना शुरू कर रहे हैं a lot of in our organizations, और हम इसको use कर रहे हैं. So we have courses in business intelligence, we have courses in data analytics, and और उसके बाद we also have plans to develop courses on blockchain, big data analytics, and security, information security, so on and so forth.
Right, and in the MS that we have technology and entrepreneurship management, do we touch on these areas in that MS as well?
So we have a course on data analytics, where we look into data analytics, and then we have courses on technology management, and I think Ali Kamar also mentioned design thinking, innovation management. So it's more of looking at the management of innovation and technology in an organization, which requires a lot of soft skills as well, managerial aspects of managing technology. So we have courses like that which we have developed for that program.
Great. Thank you very much, Osama and Ali. It was a pleasure talking to you. It was a learning experience for me, and I hope many of our viewers. And this conversation will surely help us at Suleiman Dawood School of Business to shape and refine the MS in accounting and analytics that we are offering. So with that, thank you very much to all the viewers and listeners. This is a goodbye from me, Umar.